Will Trump end the Fed? And more importantly, what will this do for the economy and assets like stocks and cryptocurrency? This video will answer these questions and provide a background to understand what the Fed actually is and the power they've exerted over the American people for over 100 years. So what is the Fed? The Federal Reserve was established in 1913, and it was done so illegally. The Fed operates independently without direct government oversight. It isn't part of the three branches of government which were set up in the Constitution. It's also in violation of the Money Clause, which gives Congress the power to coin money and regulate its value. In addition, there is no explicit constitutional authority for the creation of a central bank. Essentially, the creation of the Federal Reserve was a non-hostile takeover of the government's rightful power to control the money supply, as designated in the Constitution. The Fed makes their own rules, and they're led by a group of global elitists who are among the richest and most corrupt people in the world. Not by coincidence, the income tax law was passed in the same year, and, not surprisingly, income tax is much higher now than it was back then. Go figure. Initially, income tax was 1% on the first $20,000 made. 1%. And not very many people were making $20,000 per year back then. But this allowed the IRS and the Fed to slowly increase taxes. American citizens were now like a frog in a pot of water, slowly being boiled to death. And as we can see here, before 1913, Americans kept all of their income. Despite this, we had schools, roads, railroads, and a military. The Fed and the approval of the income tax collection by the IRS began the decline of the dollar. Just look at this chart and you can see the decline of the dollar's purchasing power since 1913. The dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power since then. The creation of the Fed was the first domino in the fall of the dollar. The dollar became the world reserve currency after World War II. Although this gave the U.S. tremendous economic power, it would eventually be used to bail us out from rising inflation in the 1960s, which was, of course, primarily caused by money printing from the Fed. The final nail in the coffin came in 1971, when Richard Nixon officially took the U.S. off the gold standard, meaning that the dollar was no longer backed by gold reserves. This decision increased the decline of the U.S. dollar, as it has lost 85% of its purchasing power since then. While inflation has increased dramatically since the 1970s, average household income has not kept up. As we can see here, while median family income is up 6x since 1971, the median cost of a car has increased by 12x, the median cost of a house has increased by 14x, and the median cost of healthcare has increased by 39x. But these numbers are even worse because most households now have to have two income earners to stay above water, whereas in the early 1970s, the majority of households had just one breadwinner in the family. It's hard to put 100% of the blame on the Fed for this discrepancy, though. Certainly businesses have played a role as well. Since the 80s, companies have focused on cost cutting, which limits wage growth, at least for the average worker. On the other hand, CEOs and executives are being paid far more than they ever have in relation to their workers on average. This is all while taxes have stayed roughly the same for workers, while decreasing significantly for corporations. Businesses seem to be getting a pass on this and should at least be shouldering some of the blame. Just looking at the numbers, we can see that corporate greed and greedflation are a real thing. Furthermore, global trade agreements and the offshoring of production have exposed American workers to competition from lower wage countries. This is something that Donald Trump has opposed, as he led several initiatives to bring work back to the U.S. in his previous term as president. In 2017, President Trump appointed Jerome Powell as the Federal Reserve Chairman. However, he repeatedly slammed the chairman and the central bank for not easing monetary policy quickly enough. In 2024, Trump said he has the right to remove Chairman Powell from office, but when asked if he would step down if Trump asked him to resign, Powell said, "No, that's not permitted under the law." Ironic coming from the chairman of an organization that has no constitutional right to exist, isn't it? Combined with this middle finger to Trump and the statement that there would only be 2 rate cuts in 2025 instead of the expected 4, the stock and cryptocurrency markets plummeted. So will Trump end the Fed when he takes office? Well, Trump hasn't directly said that he will abolish the Federal Reserve. He has said that the president should have more direct role in setting interest rates. And he would still likely be able to replace Chairman Powell if he doesn't resign. Elon Musk, who Trump has appointed to his newly formed Department of Government Efficiency position, has backed these recent statements from the president. So what does this all mean for crypto and stocks if Trump is able to end the Fed, or at least reduce its power significantly? Well, Trump has stated his support for Bitcoin many times, As he stated in the Bitcoin conference in 2024,
today, and Bitcoin and crypto will skyrocket like never before, even beyond your expectations, and you are the people that are doing it. As we stop the war on crypto, we will immediately, and we'll do this very quickly, begin to build our economy, because when America is prospering, Bitcoin is soaring, and it'll go up with it. We had the greatest economy ever, and we will soon have it again.
Trump, along with RFK, Senator Cynthia Lummis, and others, have also recently said that the U.S. will build a strategic Bitcoin reserve starting in 2025. The plan is to buy 200,000 Bitcoins over the next 5 years. This means that the U.S. would have 1 million Bitcoins by 2029, which is about 5% of the total supply. Countries such as El Salvador and Bhutan are already buying Bitcoin, with larger countries like Russia and China recently expressing interest in adding to their holdings. Throughout his presidency, Trump was able to keep inflation relatively low without raising interest rates. This led to a stronger economy, which meant more disposable income, which meant that people had more money to invest in the stock and cryptocurrency markets. Under Trump, the stock market increased by an average of about 14%, which was the third highest increase under a president since the late 1800s. Additionally, the price of Bitcoin increased by an average of 151% annually during his presidency. This is even more impressive considering the 2020 pandemic, which derailed the economy. Of course, we did have massive money printing from the Fed in 2020. While these measures helped avoid a financial collapse and supported a faster recovery, the rapid money printing has been linked to rising inflation in subsequent years, as supply chain issues and high demand outpaced the economy's capacity to respond. Despite the plan to undo the economic progress under Trump and further line the pockets of pharmaceutical companies, Trump's policies were largely good for the economy, especially for investors, and we're now entering an era with the first pro-crypto presidency in Congress in history at the helm. Bitcoin is the antithesis of fiat currency, which has caused much of the economic hardship Americans have experienced in the last 50 years. Bitcoin's supply is fixed, with a large majority of it already mined. It's also secured by the most powerful supercomputer on the planet, run on thousands of nodes throughout the world that ensure the security, decentralization, and integrity of the Bitcoin network. This has led many experts to believe that the Bitcoin price could reach as high as $1 million by 2030, and that it will eventually replace the dollar as a world reserve currency. So what do you think about the Fed? Will Trump get rid of it? Do you think Bitcoin will go much higher? Leave your comments. Thanks for watching, and God bless America.